the Hsu Research VTF-TN1 15-inch ported subwoofer. That's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. Hey folks, I'm Gene Del Sallo with Audioholics. We've got James Larson back in the house. We're going to be discussing his review of the Hsu Research VTF-TN1 15-inch ported subwoofer. How you doing, James?
I'm good. I'm good.
So this thing is a hammer, is it not?
It's a big sub. It's a beast for sure. No doubt.
So when we're talking about this subwoofer, this is basically the update to the last generation, right? This is a continuation of that, but a different form factor and some other improvements.
Yeah, so this
15H.
replaces the former flagship, which is the VTF 15H Mark II. So this is their new flagship, the VTF-TN1, whereas TN stands for Tom Nussain, who was a pretty big subwoofer back in the day, was a personal friend of Dr. Hsu's, who designs the sub and runs the company. And so this is their new big boy, and it's bigger, it digs deeper, and it's less expensive. So what's
the price on this one?
$1,200 MSRP, but $100 shipping. So overall $1,300. All in.
For what you're getting here, this is well, you'll see when we talk about the review. And guys, I do encourage you to click the link below for the written review. I'll put an info card in the corner. James did an exhaustive review with listening tests for movies and for music. Talked about how he set it up with the various port tuning options. He goes really in detail with his written reports. So this is just a supplement to that, so we can have further discussion.
Sure. Okay. Getting into it. Specifications, as Gene said, a 15-inch woofer, 600-watt AB amplifier. And most of the features are pretty standard, like phase and like volume knob and etc. But you also have what's not standard is like a Q control, which kind of tempers the low end a little bit in case you get a little bit too much room gain at the low end, or you want a little bit more room gain on the low end. It also has XLR inputs and speaker level inputs, which is kind of, I don't know why people still do speaker level inputs, but this has them for those who want them. And nice satin black finish. It's the only finish you can get on this model, and they've extended the warranty. Now you have a standard 5 years warranty for the amplifier.
Does it come with a grill, or
yes, it does. Yeah, with that
magnetic.
Pictures will show it. Yeah, it's magnetic. Okay. Oh no, it's not. It uses tabs.
Okay.
Our grill guides. Okay, here's some pictures of the shipping. Very well shipped. All the surfaces are covered with polyethylene foam, and you have like corner protectors, edge protectors. Very good shipping. Hsu usually does a good job with it. There's a picture with the grill on.
Oh, that's off. Yep.
Yeah, I think it looks a little bit better with the grill off, but I guess there's some people who don't like the look of grills, or who need the grills protected from, say, kids or pets or whatever. Then there's a grill for you.
It's funny. I would say, why would you not want to show off that beautiful woofer, right?
Yeah,
but I've got a 21. I've got a 21-inch sub in my theater room, and I covered the woofer. I didn't want people to think it was too obnoxious coming in, but it's
but 21 is a bit different, isn't it? A little bit bigger. There's a picture of the plate amp, like we said, Class A, B, heat sinks and stuff.
Flared ports.
Yeah, and tool ports is variable tuning. Most of, I think, all except for the sealed sub has variable tuning, which means you can change the tuning frequency of the ports, which gives you deeper bass, but at the expense of output. So it's kind of up to you. Whatever. Do you want deeper bass, or would you rather have like just more power at say 20 hertz, depending on your choice. So they give you the choice.
And those are pretty big ports. They look like they're about 4-inch diameter, I would imagine, right?
Yeah, they're 4 inches, and they go pretty far up. So these are very large ports. They really do the job.
I like that they put the ports at the bottom because you'll talk about this too, but it acts as basically a high pass filter, and it actually helps in some ways couple the bass because it's near a surface.
Sure. Yeah. We'll talk about it later on, but yeah, that's an advantage for sure. Here's a picture of the driver. It's a pretty darn good one. So you have cast aluminum, dual magnets. venting under the spider. I think it's a pulp paper with some kind of treatment. It's mostly the same driver they used in the VTF-3 and also the VTF-15H. Like, there's no real reason to change it. It was a beast then, and it's a really good driver now. So like,
It's a lot of driver for a sub that's $1,200.
yeah, it's a bruiser for sure. Here's a picture of the internals. A lot of damping on the walls. There's bracing. There's also bracing you don't see here along the top and bottom, and like corner bracing. So it's not a super heavy sub, but it's pretty stout, and it's not, you don't have to worry about like cabinet vibrating or anything like that. It's pretty well built. Yep. Pictures of here's the conditions that we tested it in. This is an anechoic condition. The mic is on the ground, the sub is on the ground, so there's no echoes. So you can get and there's no surfaces nearby, so there's nothing for the sound to bounce off of. So this is basically anechoic testing. And here's the frequency response to the sub, very, very flat, especially for a sub that has no DSP in it. This uses an analog amplifier, right? This goes to show you that you don't need DSP to get a flat response. All you have to do.
That's actually unbelievable without DSP that it's so linear like that.
Well, Hsu's always had a really, really flat response without DSP. So like, it just goes to show that you don't need, all you need is a good driver and the optimally sized box, right? And you can get a flat response. You get a very linear, high fidelity sound. You don't need DSP to do that. You just need to get a good driver and put it where it should be used, and the type of enclosure it suits its best.
And it's probably a very low inductance driver because it's flat to 200 hertz, which makes it easy for you to blend with even small speakers.
Yeah, you could cross this over to any frequency you want, basically, up to 200 hertz. I can't imagine anyone wanting to cross it a sub further above that, but yeah. Here's the burst test. This is how loud the sub can get in decibels in a moment, right? And like, it's called the burst test, or the CEA-2010 burst test. And this puts up some pretty big numbers. It's what you'd expect from a very powerful 15, except it does dig pretty deep. This sub digs deeper than most 15s in its class. Because the port, you can select either a 18 hertz or 15 hertz tuning frequency. And so that's very deep, especially, for a sub of its power and price class. And so
so when you're doing the one port versus two ports, is it just a matter of plugging one port or not plugging one port, or do you have to flip a switch with it as well for any kind of changes to the sub?
Well, you want to modify the filter. There's a filter that protects the driver. Yeah, and when you have both ports open, so yeah, you want to switch it to EQ1 mode when you do plug a port, so it knows to like let the driver take advantage of that port. And so yeah, there's a setting you want to adjust. You don't just seal a port, you also flip a switch. But yeah, it's really easy to do. So and it gives you a cleaner, deeper bass than when you have both ports open.
So it doesn't, looking at the CEA-2010 graph, it doesn't look like there's much advantage to one port open. Just on the numbers, maybe at one frequency, you're seeing a 1.4 dB increase at like 16 hertz. But you look here on this graph and you see that this sub is tuned lower with one port, and you are going to get some infrasonic advantages, in your room, because there's going to be less of a shallow roll off. So you're going to have more advantage of room gain that you don't see with just these anechoic numbers.
Yeah, very much so. These burst tests, I know a lot of people like to evaluate subwoofers using these CEA-2010 burst tests, but that doesn't tell the whole story at all. This sub, if you want deep bass, use one port. It's just more comfortable there. It's less distortion. It plays louder at that low of a frequency. And like CEA allows a lot of distortion, and the type of distortion that allows it, it's a bit misleading to use just these numbers as a guide to subwoofer performance. You have to look at the whole picture. So yeah, use one port if you want the deepest possible bass, for sure, from the sub.
So guys, for $1,200, you're getting a subwoofer that has our Bassaholic Extreme rating.
That's with two ports open, though. We should
two ports. Yeah, with two ports.
Yeah,
one port, it's large.
Yeah, with one port it's large, and that's about how I would use it. Yeah, for sure. Here's the maximum output. So what we just saw, those numbers, was how the sub performs in just a moment, right? Just a quick burst. This is how it performs continuously. we drive up the sub levels from like by 5 dB and to see where it just cannot, make more sound, right?
Hmm.
But continuously, right? And so you can see that it hits pretty high. I mean, most of its range, and this is in one port, is well above 110 dB, which continuously is a lot of output. That's big output. It does
Yeah.
compress a bit.
After
Like,
about 105 dB, it starts compressing. That's still pretty awesome.
yeah, I mean, so it keeps its shape up to like the 105 dB like sweep, and above that it does compress a bit, only in the low end, but like it's it's a powerful sub. I think the next slide shows what happens with 2 ports. So the 2-port, so when you plug a port, you lose half of the output that the ports can generate. So
Hmm.
when you have both ports open, you double the port generated output, and you have less compression, and so you get more port output. And this shows you you just get more deep bass, but not as deep bass. And so
Hmm.
that's what this versus the previous graph kind of shows you. And again, yeah, tons of output from the subwoofer. It's a very, very powerful sub, and it holds its shape. It holds its response shape up to a very high, drive
It,
level too.
it really is very linear.
Oh
Again,
yes, very much so. Here's the distortion graphs. It has very low distortion at nominal levels, but like so many subs, if you crank it really high, yeah, it does produce some distortion. If it had DSP, here's one area where DSP would have helped, where that could have tapered down the output. So if you wanted totally clean like bass at all drive levels, DSP can do that, whereas an analog amp can't really do that, But
mhm.
if you did that, you would sacrifice the output. So
Oh,
like,
I was just gonna say you'll sacrifice dynamic range for that.
yeah, so like, and it doesn't happen until the last few dB. So like, and at nominal levels, it's very, very low, like almost like 1%. Here's the components uh, of the components of that previous graph, which is total harmonic distortion, your second versus third harmonic, or odd versus even harmonic distortion. And like, this is pretty typical at nominal levels. You normally see more even order distortion, but when you push the sub hard, you really get a rise in the odd order distortion, especially at low frequencies where the driver is just, it's being constricted on both ends of the excursion. And
Right.
so, yeah, here's the graph of its like basically time domain performance. This is group delay, and it's really good. So like, I guess you could say our worst case scenario is 20 milliseconds, where some people say, oh, we can hear group delay above 20 milliseconds. And in this graph, that shows us that it doesn't even go above 20 milliseconds until below 40 hertz, which is where human hearing is really hard to hear. We
Yep.
don't hear well at all at such a deep frequency. But above that frequency, where hearing has far more, it's far more
Sensitivity.
sensitive.
Yeah.
It's all under 10 milliseconds, which is very, very
Well,
quick.
and the thing is, most ported subs, you're going to see a rise in group delay near the port frequency, right? This one
Yes.
keeps it really well under control because it's tuned so low, I think, and that's part of the reason why the group delay is good on it. Also, because you have that driver's not really massive, right? I mean, it's flat to 200 hertz. It's wide bandwidth.
Yeah, and like, and the port, I guess the box and the port and the filters are all pretty simple. So when you start making things complex, you start adding filters and stuff, and you start cranking up the group delay. And since this is
Yeah,
a
the
relatively
DSP. Yep.
simple subwoofer, it just doesn't have a lot of like extra stuff to bring up that time domain performance. So
Yeah.
yeah. So bottom line, pros, like we said, very low strength in this class. It's it's really low. Punchy mid bass. Like if you looked at those CA burst numbers, you had like 118 dB plus in mid bass, right? Which is that's a lot of output. I mean, you feel that
Yeah.
in your chest. It punches you right in the chest, and you can feel it for sure. Like as we just saw, good time domain performance. So like if you want a sub that doesn't have any lag, or it's not boomy, or or just it's just like what they call quick, sharp.
Hmm.
This is that sub for sure, and it shows that ported subs can do that. You don't need sealed to do that really.
Yeah. Good
Um,
point.
Very low distortion, except until you crank it. If you go full bore, right? If you turn the volume all the way up, which is what we do for that test, those distortion. In other words, yeah, you can drive up distortion at the very highest drive level, but below that, very well controlled, very low distortion, under like you're talking about 1 to 2%. at normal drive levels. So it's like
Oh,
very,
yeah.
very clean
Really
bass.
good.
And also, what we didn't really mention before, okay, so this sub, it exchanges depth for height, right?
Mhm.
And so in order to do that, well, one of the advantages of doing that is you have now a relatively small footprint for such a powerful ported subwoofer. There's no other ported 15 that has such a small footprint. It has the same footprint actually as their sealed 15. So like,
Yeah, that's cool.
it doesn't eat up a lot of floor space. And another
Yeah.
pro is it has a true satin black finish. A lot of other subs in this price class have like a vinyl like wrap, veneer, right? No, this has an actual satin black, a really smooth kind of sheen with a nice sheen, a satin black finish. So, but the con to all this, the con basically to the footprint is that it has height now exchange depth for height, and I think like a lot of people would feel that it's more visually like it stands out more. You can see it better when it's taller as opposed to deeper, and so I think it looks cool. I don't mind the look, but some people might not want a sub with such a kind of a high profile. I think it's 30 inches tall. So yeah,
Yeah.
so bottom line, they reconfigured their VTF-15H Mark II and optimized. It's a lot like the Mark II, except better ports and like height instead of depth. So smaller footprint, lower price, better ports, and it's a lighter sub.
And
But
it's also slightly cheaper too.
yeah, it's slightly cheaper and with a better warranty. It's like
Yeah.
we go into that, and so like and as we discussed before, down-firing ports that also has an advantage. It can mask any port noises. It does much better. It's much better at doing that when the ports actually face you. It's much better. I've heard that many times myself, and it has additional loading. It basically extends the port, whereas there's more like a compressed space around the port, so that can add additional like you might say port loading. It can produce even deeper bass by making the that area underneath the port be more port space. Like
Yeah.
the air slug in it is like it increases the amount of air that has to like that the port interacts with. So like
Right.
yeah, it can give you deeper bass than what even we showed, and what we showed was like basically almost flat down to 15 hertz. And so this is a sub that can chase true infrasonic frequencies. If you're interested in that. So
Yep.
competing subs. There's the mono in its competition. There's a monoprice monolith M15 V2. We reviewed the V1, which is basically the same thing as the V2. The V2 is just it's cosmetically different, but there's no driver or like amplifier differences. But it's a bit more expensive. It's much heavier. It's much larger. The advantages are it has pretty sophisticated DSP control, so it has like THX certification, so you can't drive it to produce any distortion whatsoever. It doesn't do that, right? And it's mandated by the THX certification. There's also the SVS PV3000, which is like it's like the VTF or the VTF-TN1, and it's light and it's not super heavy. It also has DSP control and app control. That's an advantage of that, but it doesn't dig as deep. That's a disadvantage. So it's kind of like it, just with a few more features, but not quite the extension that the TN1 has. Then moving on to the Klipsch, we reviewed all these subs except for I didn't review the FE15 HP, but Audioholics had it by another reviewer, Josh Ricci. But the Klipsch one, it's a much larger sub. It's more expensive, and it does have a lot more output. I mean, that thing was a monster. That thing produced. It got really loud. It had more output overall than the TN1, but the TN1 had more controlled ports. I remember that down to its port tuning frequency. It produced it could be pushed to produce chuffing, whereas the TN1 had very clean and higher performing ports, I would say overall.
Okay.
I haven't had experience with the Rhythmic FV 15 HP, but that's a good sub. It's been around for a while. A lot of people really like it, and we have a review for that for anybody who wants to compare these subs for sure. I think we've reviewed all these subs, so yeah.
Yeah, guys, please use the audioholics.com website as a resource after you watch these videos. We've got articles published for 25 years. Most of the time, we have written editorial that supports these videos. So, James, overall, why don't you just give a 1-minute impression of your listening experience with the subwoofer, the HSU? How did it feel listening to music and watching movies?
It's really good. But I know where to put the subs in my room where I can get the best response. I know how to integrate them quickly, so I don't have to spend a lot of time, getting each sub like perfect right. I already know where to put those subs. So I'm like, yeah, this sub is like it. As we said, it's really deep digging. I mean, I watched John Wick 2 or no, John Wick 4 on it. It sounded great. I watched Dune 2 with the sub. Sounded great. A lot of music. It's an imperturbable sub. It's like you can crank it. It has a ton of punch, especially for like electronic music or it needs music with like a lot of like emphasis on percussion. It'll hit you in the chest for sure, but it doesn't give up a lot of like that deep bass infrasonic, that you feel it in your stomach kind of bass. It's a sub that has a good balance of both. So like I really like this sub. I wish we'd get more subs that could do all that, but not weigh a ton, right? Most of the subs that we do that we get that can do all that, they're just huge and just like, yeah, this does all that and it doesn't weigh a ton and it doesn't have a huge footprint. So like I really, really like this sub for sure.
Yeah. Well, guys, check it out. Check out our written review again on the Hsu Research VTF-TN1 15-inch ported sub. I'll put some links down below. If you like this video, please hit the thumb up, hit subscribe. Don't forget about our Patreon channel at patreon.com/audioholics. We appreciate your support. You get direct access to me if you want to suggest video topics. James, again, thanks for all your efforts here taking this subwoofer. It's not light. It's not, it's still a pretty sizable product for you to go and take outside, do the measurements, and just do all of the work that you do on our review. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's not terrible. It's like, I think 85 pounds, 80 pounds or so around there. I've had subs that literally weigh twice that much. So I'm okay with it. I like it.
All right, guys. Well, that's a wrap. And until next time, my friends, keep listening.